Also in Virginia, Jerry, the Attorney General has announced he's going to fight that state's ban on same-sex marriage. Surprising
Very,
turn.
very surprising to me, at least. Very surprising. Not just that he did it, but he did it so quickly upon taking office, and in such a kind of a confrontational way with the other side of this debate. I mean, essentially, what the Attorney General of Virginia said was, "I'm not going to enforce a constitutional ban that voters in the state put in place a few years ago on same-sex marriages. I'm joining a lawsuit that will attempt to have that ban overturned." As you'd expect, this has really set Republicans on edge in Richmond because they essentially are arguing, look, you're the Attorney General of the state. Your constitutional duty is to defend the Constitution of the state of Virginia. The Constitution happens to include this ban on gay marriage. How can you wriggle out of that? The answer was, well, my highest duty is to defend the United States Constitution, the Attorney General says, and I've concluded this our constitutional ban violates the United States Constitution, so therefore I'm doing what my real ultimate responsibility is, which is to make sure our state is not in violation of the U.S. Constitution. Whether that's a principal legal position or a political position, it depends on who you are and where you stand as you look at this.
Ruth.
It's a very fascinating issue, and we saw versions of this actually in the cases that were before the Supreme Court last year, where the California Attorney General declined to support Proposition 8, and actually for that reason, nobody else had legal standing to challenge it, and that was why the case came out the way it did. Similarly, with President Obama declined to support the constitutionality of the Defense of Marriage Act. I think one thing that is important in these cases is making sure, as happened in the Defense of Marriage Act case, as didn't happen in the California case, making sure that there is somebody who can come in to make the argument on the other side. Because I do think, as much as I am a supporter of gay marriage and the right to the constitutional right to gay marriage, I do think that the people of Virginia did express themselves in a constitutional amendment, and they do have some right to expect, until they change that amendment, somebody, maybe not the Attorney General, but somebody acting in his stead, to support that amendment.
And of course, it's fascinating that the Attorney General himself, Mark Herring, had voted against gay marriage when
he voted in favor of that 2006 amendment himself. You know, the timing, I think, is forced by the fact that there were about a week to 10 days before arguments start in the case in earnest in Virginia. So he was forced a little bit by the timing there. But after a razor-thin election victory, in which he didn't exactly come out and say Virginia's ban on same-sex marriage is like the doctrine of separate but equal, and instead sort of kept that largely out of the headlines, Republicans should be furious. They lost this job by a really narrow margin, and this guy's turning around after the election and changing his mind completely.
The other problem that the Democrats have is that they had been complaining for 4 years that Mr. Herring's predecessor as Attorney General, Republican Ken Cuccinelli, had been doing exactly the same thing on the other side, stretching the ability or stretching the powers of the office to push ahead a conservative agenda. Well, now Democrats are accused of exactly the same thing. I think one of the interesting things about this whole situation is that the underlying premise, I think, is that if there were a new vote in Virginia on that constitutional ban on gay marriage, it would fail now because public opinion has shifted so quickly and so thoroughly, and that's probably true, but the reality is that vote hasn't taken place.